The proceedings of this program shortly, requesting all of you to please take your designated seats, requesting all of you to please settle down. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dhanyavad, and thank you very much for your gracious presence here at the Sushma Swaraj Bhavan, home to India's G20 Secretariat, the command and the nerve center of G20, a group of 19 nations and the European Union with a common pledge to create solutions to the problems faced by the world. December 1st, 2022 is in the throes of getting etched in history as a glittering day when India officially assumed G20 presidency. And we start the ceremony by inviting key functionaries to the stage who will be shaping and guiding India's G20 presidency, apart from the multiple roles they play. I would like to welcome on stage respected Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister, Dr. P.K. Mishra, India's G20 Sherpa, Shri Amitabh Kant, India's G20 Chief Coordinator, Shri Harshvardhan Shringla, Secretary Higher Education, Shri K. Sanjay Murthy, and Chairman, University Grants Commission, Professor M. Jagdish Kumar. Welcome to University Connect, Engaging Young Minds program. Gentlemen, I would like to invite all of you to the stage because every new beginning must be marked by auspicious traditions, and light in our culture symbolizes the divine almighty, the knowledgeable, the Chaitanya. So let's begin with the lighting of the lamps. Thank you, gentlemen. And before we move ahead in the program, here is a small audio-visual clip that we want you all to see.
As the world arrives in India to shape a common global future, India leads the way with its own golden period of inclusive and sustainable growth, the Amrit Kal. A new era signifying India's development from its 75th year of independence to its 100th. An epic journey towards becoming a beacon of global growth. The Prime Minister's call for inclusive development in the Amrit Kal will be further substantiated during India's G20 presidency through our theme of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. One Earth, one family, one future. A vision that aims at bringing people together to build a better future for everyone. To achieve that goal, significant national priorities were charted out and set in motion. India's technological and digital innovation will become engines for the future of inclusive growth and connectivity. Our environment initiatives, including LIFE, will ensure true prosperity by promoting sustainable lifestyles through individual and collective action to protect and preserve the environment. Through inclusive economic growth, India will spearhead universal benefits that serve long-term interests of people with compassion, equality, and solidarity, leaving no one behind. India's focus on women-led development will continue empowering women into contributing to the larger economy. With the promise of peace, harmony, and security, India will build a world where every individual finds a perfect ground to blossom fully.
हम वो लोग हैं जिसने दुनिया का कल्याण देखा है। लोग दुनिया की कामना करते हैं, सब कहते हैं सर्वे अपि सुखिनः सन्तु सर्वे सन्तु निरामया।
The importance of collective action is stronger than ever before, and G20 India shall strive to build a collective and inclusive shared future. India's G20 theme holds these national priorities together like the petals of the lotus, blooming victorious from the pool of challenges, holding our planet in a warm embrace, blossoming into a better tomorrow.
आज मैं ये आश्वासन देना चाहता हूं कि भारत की G20 अध्यक्षता इंक्लूसिव, एम्बिशियस, डिसिसिव और एक्शन ओरिएंटेड होगी।
Our G20 meetings are planned in different cities and states of our country to provide an enriching experience of India's amazing diversity and inclusive traditions for our guests from different corners of the world. We wish for each and every one of you to participate in this unique celebration that is India. Welcome to G20 India. One Earth, one family, one future.
Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam.
Guided by Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, the G20 from today drives with a new mantra, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. We have with us students from 75 Indian universities. We have vice chancellors of India's prestigious universities. Some are here with us and some have joined us virtually. May I please now request G20 Chief Coordinator Shri Harshvardhan Shringla to welcome the young minds of India and respected dignitaries who have gathered here on this historic day for a unique journey.
Thank you, Hina ji. Namaskar and good morning. The 1st of December is an important date for India and a proud moment for all Indians. Today, India assumes presidency of the G20 with a sense of responsibility and humility. We are very happy that we have the opportunity to share this momentous occasion with students from all over the country who have joined us to commemorate India's presidency of the G20. We are deeply honored to have with us Dr. P.K. Mishra, Honorable Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister, to inaugurate this event. I wish to acknowledge the presence of India's G20 Sherpa, Shri Amitabh Kantji, Secretary, Ministry of Higher Education, Government of India, Shri Sanjay Murthy, Chairman, University Grants Commission, Professor M. Jagdish Kumar, Director General of the RIS, Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, and also to thank him for partnering with us in this important event. Vice Chancellors of Delhi University, Jawaharlal Nehru University, Jamia Millia University, Amity University, Gautam Buddha University, Sharda University, and TERI. We are also privileged to have with us our External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, who will join us in a subsequent session. He will interact directly with students on this program, and we are looking forward to this most interesting and valuable exchange. A very special word of welcome to all students who have joined us here at the G20 Secretariat in Delhi and from all over India virtually. In this Azadi Ka Amrit Kaal, you are our future and you are our hope. Our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, has referred to today's youth as nation builders and leaders of tomorrow. That the whole world is looking at India's youth with hope, as they are the growth engines of the world. It is because of this reason that the theme Youth Connect was chosen to give this mega event an eventful and energetic start. Today, students, professors, and vice chancellors from 75 universities across India have joined us for the University Connect program. I hope each and every participant will benefit from the program today. Our theme for the G20, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, establishes that during our presidency, we will work to promote a universal sense of oneness, to address the challenges that mankind as one family faces today. In accordance with the Prime Minister's vision, under our presidency, we will hold 200 G20 meetings in over 50 locations across the length and breadth of our country. Such a momentous organization has never been attempted before. Its success is dependent on every one of us, youth, women, citizens, states, officials. We Indians have before us a unique opportunity in the presidency of the G20 and a profound responsibility to showcase our rich cultural heritage and diversity, tourism potential, and development prowess, so that the world derives value from its interactions with us. Prime Minister Modi has asked us to join together to make India's G20 presidency a presidency of healing, harmony, and hope. Over the course of this morning, you will receive several inputs and important information on India's G20 presidency. As G20 Chief Coordinator, I invite all of our student participants who are with us today to not only bring G20 into your lives, but also become its brand ambassadors in disseminating information on our G20 presidency to more and more people. India's presidency is a mega national event. Let us come together and participate in it, immerse in it, propagate it, so that it becomes etched into our memories for all times to come. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Sri Harshvardhan Shringla, for sharing with us your vision for India's G20 presidency over the next 1 year. You rightly said it is an opportunity that needs participation, bhagidari, a mantra Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been encouraging. Moving on, may I please request G20 Sherpa, Sri Amitabh Kant, to share his opening remarks.
Mr. P.K. Mishra, distinguished Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister of India, my colleague, the G20 Chief Coordinator, Mr. Harshvardhan Shringla, the Chairman of the UGC, Professor Jagdish Kumar, my colleague, Mr. Sanjay Murthy, the Secretary of Higher Education, many distinguished Vice Chancellors who are here with us today. We greatly appreciate your presence. Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, the head of RIS, and dear students who've joined us here physically and many of you who've joined us virtually. Today is one of the most memorable days in the history of India as India takes over the presidency of G20. It is a very unique responsibility because G20 accounts for 85% of the global GDP. It accounts for 78% of the global trade. It accounts for 90% of the patents, almost 2/3 of the population. Therefore, as the G20 president, India's Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, will be setting the agenda of the world. And this is a huge responsibility because we are taking over this at a very challenging time of the world. There is geopolitical crisis. There is a challenge of breakdown of global supply chains. There is a crisis of climate finance and climate action. 70 countries of the world are facing a global debt crisis. And as a consequence of COVID, 200 million people have gone below the poverty line. But the Prime Minister has said that India's leadership of G20 will be decisive, it will be ambitious, it will be action-oriented, and it will be reform-driven. And to make that happen, the youth of India is most critical, and that is why he has desired that we begin the G20 movement and India's leadership with all of you, the young people of India. Today, India has an average age of 29 and a median age of 28.4. This means that 50% of our population is less than 29. This means that we are one of the youngest countries in the world. While countries across the world are aging, we have a young population. That is why during our G20 presidency, your role is most critical and most vital. When I was growing up, there were only two options. Either you join the government or become an executive in the private sector. Today, most young people like you are becoming entrepreneur and you are disrupting the status quo. When we started the Startup India movement, which was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister in 2016, there were 186 startups. Today, there are 80,000 plus startups. We have the highest number of unicorns in the world. And therefore, the country is full of young entrepreneurs and technopreneurs. Today, the desire for youngsters like you is to start something of your own rather than work for someone else. And let me tell you, it is these startups that are innovating for India, not just for India, but innovating for the world. And that is why we have become the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, and we will be number one very soon. Today, India embarks on a journey to take a leadership role at a global level. It will take up the presidency of G20 in a challenging time, but every challenge is a huge opportunity. And during the last 7-8 years, we've demonstrated that every crisis has been used as an opportunity to take the country forward. For all of you especially, we are very happy to let you know that some of our priorities would resonate extremely well with the youth of India, be it digital transformation, women-led development, using data for development, whether it's our engagement groups, Women 20, Youth 20, Startup 20, Civil 20, all these are areas where we like all of you to play a key and critical role. Our presidency cannot be successful without involving the young citizens of India, the youth of India. That is why for us, all of you are the most important constituent of this G20. You should all use this opportunity to contribute to our presidency and feel involved. Conceptualize G20 events, just as you conceptualize Model United Nations, organize debates and discussions, have G20 themed panel discussions, be a part of all our events, initiative, discussions and meetings, and become our stakeholders. You are the future of India. You are all future leaders, future entrepreneurs. And therefore, G20 is very critical for all of us together. Ladies and gentlemen, this era belongs to India, and this era belongs to you. We are all happy to welcome all of you, and all of you will become the core pillars of our G20 presidency. So thank you very much for joining us. We wish you all the best. We wish India's G20 presidency under the leadership of our Prime Minister all the very best and all success, and Jai Hind. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shri Amitabh Kant, for these encouraging words. May I now please request Secretary Higher Education, Shri K. Sanjay Murthy, to share with us a few words on this occasion.
Good morning, everyone. Respected Principal Secretary to Prime Minister, Dr. P.K. Mishra ji, G20 Sherpa, Shri Amitabh Kant, Chief Coordinator G20, Shri Harsh Shringla ji, Chairman UGC, Professor Jagdish Kumar, distinguished Vice Chancellors, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I am honored to be present here today as India assumes the G20 presidency under the mantra of Vasudhaiva Kutumbam, One Earth, One Family, One Future. In his speech at the G20 summit last month, Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi assured the G20 community that India's presidency will be inclusive, ambitious, decisive, and action-oriented. Today, we begin our journey towards fulfilling this commitment. In this context, the endeavor of the Education Working Group would be to accelerate collaborative action under the G20 platform to ensure equitable access to education, leverage the potential of technology, ensure lifelong learning for all, and rebuild educational ecosystems to be more resilient, sustainable, and true drivers of lifestyle for environment. The priorities that I have just mentioned are in total resonance with the priorities of the National Education Policy 2020. The policy rests on the foundation principles of access, equality, quality, affordability, and accountability, and emphasizes holistic development of each individual. Under this policy, we have brought in reforms to improve the quality of education, promote flexibility, and multidisciplinarity and make curricula more relevant to changing global requirements while incorporating the wealth of Indian languages and knowledge systems. There is increased focus on functional literacy and numeracy and learning outcomes at all levels. Technology is being used extensively to increase reach, accessibility, continuity, quality of education, and for improving governance of the educational institutions. The skilling ecosystem is also being revamped to provide opportunities for relevant lifelong learning. With the success of initiatives like Diksha, Swayam, Nipun Bharat, existing 60 educational TV channels, digital university, academic bank of credits, and many more such initiatives, we find ourselves confident and empowered to lead positive collaborations on the G20 platform. Coming to the proposed plans for the Education Working Group, we have identified 4 priority areas for India's presidency. These are ensuring foundational literacy and numeracy, especially in the context of blended learning, making tech-enabled learning more inclusive, qualitative, and collaborative at every level, building capacities, promoting lifelong learning in context of future of work, strengthening research, promoting innovation through richer collaboration. All these 4 issues resonate with the G20 countries and beyond and are being discussed on various international platforms. Some of these themes have been carried forward from past presidencies as we propose to build on and carry forward the work done earlier. The issue of FLN has been taken up for the first time as it is a matter of concern globally and has been echoed even in the UN Transforming Education Summit held in New York this year. We propose to have 4 meetings of the Education Working Group in Chennai, Amritsar, Bhubaneswar, and Pune in the first half of next year, with the ministerial meeting at Pune on the 28th June 2023. Apart from this, we also propose to have 4 seminars at these 4 venues, 1 on each identified priority, and exhibitions at the venues to showcase some of our best initiatives in the education sector. By taking up these issues in the G20 platform, we aim to share the experiences and best practices of G20 countries and other participating countries. We also aim to drive concrete collaboration action, including future strategies and roadmaps for improving learning outcomes and reinventing methods, content, curricula, pedagogies, and more, so that education can be made more relevant for the capacities and skills required in the 21st century. We will make efforts to ensure that some of these concrete actionable proposals find place in the declaration signed by the G20 education ministers. It is very heartening to note that RIS is organizing the G20 University Connect. It is extremely important to engage our youth in this endeavor and provide the contextual setting for this. I urge each university, their faculty, and students to deliberate the significance of India's presidency and integrate within their curriculum discourse the different aspects of G20 engagement like climate change, energy transition, digital transformation, sustainable development, to name a few, and our country's leadership role in these areas. As we strive today to recalibrate and reinvent spaces, tools, technologies, policies, and deliverables in various realms, we look forward to ideas and support from our universities, faculties, and young mind to make our endeavors more fruitful. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Sri K. Sanjay Murthy, for your insightful remarks. I would now like to request respected Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister, Dr. P.K. Mishra, to deliver the keynote address for the first session and enrich the audience with his knowledge gained through almost 50 years of long administrative experience.
Sri Amitabh Kant, G20 Sherpa, Sri Harshvardhan Singla, G20 Chief Coordinator, Sri Sanjay Murthy, Secretary Higher Education, Professor Jagdish Kumar, Chairman University Grants Commission, Vice Chancellors, faculty members, and dear students. Today, the 1st of December 2022, is a watershed moment for India and her 1.41 billion citizens. India gets a glorious opportunity to host the largest multilateral event on its soil. India assumes the G20 presidency from today. This is a great honor as well as a great responsibility for all of us, because this occasion is coming to us in the Amrit Kal of our independence. Today, India's G20 officially begins with the University Connect program, wherein we would engage the youth of India, those who would lead India from the front in the years to come. As part of G20 process, people from diverse strata and occupation will also participate in different meeting formats. India's G20 is not merely a diplomatic meeting, it is a great opportunity for India and for every Indian. Our Prime Minister has said, I quote, "Today there is an unprecedented curiosity in the world to know and understand India. Today India is being studied in a new light. Our current successes are being assessed and unprecedented hopes are being expressed about our future." I unquote. He continued, I quote, "In such an atmosphere, it is the responsibility of citizens to go beyond these expectations and acquaint the world with India's capabilities, philosophy, social and intellectual strength," unquote. Our Prime Minister's vision is that the G20 should not be limited to certain meetings, but it should be based on the participation, enthusiasm, and activities of all citizens, and particularly the youth and the intellectuals. It is also our responsibility to showcase in the most rightful ways, befitting her stature and glory. India has as much uniqueness as it has diversity. We have a responsibility to bring out the best traditions of India before the world. The event has to showcase a glimpse of our tradition of Atithi Devo Bhava. As you are aware, our Prime Minister has stressed the importance of forward-looking actions, but with firm roots in the Indian culture. You must be aware that in October of this year, Mission Lifestyle for Environment, known as LIFE, L-I-F-E mission, was launched in the presence of the UN Secretary General. This LIFE mission is one such mantra we have given to the world. The concept of pro-planet people and the focus on individual behaviors is derived from our ethos of living close to the nature, taking from Mother Nature to satisfy our need and not our greed. The main focus of life is to go beyond what we are talking about in the realm of environment and in the realm of climate change. The idea is how the lifestyle, the behavior can change, which can contribute to addressing the problems and challenges of climate change. These are challenging times, but there are opportunities as well. India has taken lead in the global sphere to spearhead the transition towards cleaner sources of energy. Our global initiative, such as One Sun, One World, One Grid, and International Solar Alliance, have complemented our domestic commitment for achieving 50% of installed electricity capacity through non-fossil fuels. We also have initiated the CDRI, the Coalition for Disaster-Resistant Infrastructure, which is a very great milestone in our efforts to make all the infrastructure disaster-resistant. And a number of countries have joined. If a country such as ours shows the way, then the world will have to follow. The Unified Payment Interface, known as UPI, which all of you must have heard, pioneered by India, is another example of how Indian solutions have the potential to come to the aid of the world. In 2021, the UPI transaction value has been more than 800 billion, indicating the growth rate of 97% for 2000 compared to the earlier year. Similarly, 40% of the world's real-time payment transactions took place through UPI. Similarly, 460 million new bank accounts were opened on the basis of digital identity. This UPI is possibly one of the most important milestone in the world globally, and it might change the face of digital payment not only in India but in other countries. And in the G20, this can be showcased to the world, particularly the developing world and even the developed world. Our evolving experience with bridging the domestic digital divide can provide valid lessons to the international community to bridge the global digital divide. Because when we talk about digitization, when we talk about all the improvement, and which we have seen during the COVID years, there were a lot of efforts to digitize, to interact virtually, to teach through virtual means and so on. But one thing also we found that those who had less access to digitization or internet were disadvantaged. So how to bridge this digital divide is a challenge for us for the coming years. As Mr. Amitabh Kant mentioned, the vibrant startup ecosystem in the country is evidence that sky is the limit as far as the youth are concerned. India is currently ranked, as you rightly mentioned, third globally in fintech strength after US and China. As of October 2022, India has had more than 8,000 recognized startups spread across 660 districts, means all over the country. We have the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, and with 107 unicorns, we have the third largest unicorn nation in the world. Dear students, these are but glimpses of the entrepreneurial capacities of our people, especially the youth. Under our Prime Minister's leadership, we have continuously molded our policies to suit our genius of our youth. India's national education policy, as Secretary Higher Education just elaborated, our National Education Policy 2020 is a holistic and futuristic policy based on foundational principles of access, equality, quality, affordability, and accountability. It aims to build the creative potential of every student in sync with the requirement of the 21st century. Whether it is reform aimed at skilling, reskilling, and upskilling of our people, or reaching out clean fuel to people under Ujjwala program, or providing health support under the Ayushman Bharat, or Mudra Yojana for funding small entrepreneurship, or our vaccine Maitri, to reach the COVID-19 vaccine not only to the last person in the country, but also to other countries' need. The intent always is to reach the benefit to the last person in the country and in other countries as well. The real asset of our nation is its people. G20 related activities during our presidency, therefore, rightly focuses on this partnership. Holding the meetings at 56 different locations in the country will ensure that the pan-India nature of event is truly showcased. Every state government, every union territory, and every citizen is a stakeholder in the process of India's presidency. For facilitating active participation, a number of interesting activities such as Model G20, G20 branding in festivals, selfie contest with monuments in different parts of the country, especially lighted with G20 logo, poetry and quiz competition are being organized by the G20 Secretariat. You should participate in the activities of your choice and make it truly a people's G20, making full use of this rare opportunity. G20 presidency is an opportunity to present the diversity that India to the outside world. Universities can train students about local history and important landmarks, art forms, and other cultural traditions of their area. Such students can then be a part of organizing meetings and in guiding foreign delegates. G20 Secretariat and the Department of Higher Education can consider identifying partner universities for different locations. I am sure the 75 universities which have been already identified, some of them could play a role in these activities. Apart from places of historical, economic, and cultural importance, there could be immersive experiences like nature walks, village visits, visits to weekly and local markets. You can further leverage your creativity to create informational videos in English and other G20 languages as well. The website can upload photos of the visits and testimonials by G20 delegates. Universities can select bright students and train them in being reporters of sessions. Those universities having foreign language departments may be particularly useful for providing translation-related activities. Such a pool of translators and reporters may be provided further training by the G20 Secretariat and used during various meeting sessions. This will also become a human resource pool for such future global events that we may host in the future. The G20 meetings will be a unique opportunity to learn from the different countries' experiences. Short discussions, lectures, and workshops with speakers from G20 countries and local experts can be considered. Topics may be related to the theme of the meeting proposed in that location. For example, a location where meetings on digital economy is being planned can organize sessions on importance of digital economy for India and for the world in the next 25 years. Cultural shows may be organized by students during these programs, an online monthly journal containing research articles on G20 themes may be brought out by the UGC with focus on how India can play a leading role in these areas in the coming years. As other speakers have noted, this is a good opportunity to see the world and experience in its charms without moving out of your homes. Because when so many people, so many delegates, high-level functionaries from different countries come, it gives all of us an opportunity to experience their culture, their ideas, their many perceptions, and what they feel and what they do. This can give an opportunity about them even if we don't go outside the country. Each G20 representative brings his culture along with him. Our students should imbibe the most each of them can offer, and in return show to the delegates a slice of India's rich culture. Being the torch-bearers of our rich heritage and culture, you are indeed India's cultural ambassadors. People from different parts of the world will get a chance to visit your states. I urge all of you to take the initiative to showcase the rich cultural mosaic of various developments of your respective states. I am confident that your interaction with the delegates will be the start of a long-term connect and relationship with the people of G20 countries. I have described a large number of activities, many of which all of you might have already taken up or might be taking up or might consider undertaking, which can help us building a new future. To conclude, I recall the words of Gandhiji, who said, "I want the cultures of all lands to be blown about my house as freely as possible, but I refuse to be blown off my feet by any." Again, I repeat, Gandhiji said, "I want the cultures of all lands to be blown about my house as freely as possible, but I refuse to be blown off my feet by any." Dear students, let us keep the above words close to our heart, even as we showcase the best our country can offer. I wish you all the best and a very successful and happy New Year 2023. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mishra. The G20 Secretariat will keep seeking your guidance. And you correctly said, every state, every union territory, every citizen is a stakeholder. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us for this first session today. With this, we wrap up the first session of today's program. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Let's now move on to our next session this morning. This session is an opportunity for students from 75 universities and the vice chancellors who have joined us today to get to know about G20. From those who will be piloting and navigating the G20 through the 200 plus events spread across more than 50 cities in the country. And for this interesting and interactive session, I would like to invite on the stage Officer on Special Duty Operations, Shri Muktesh Pardeshi, Additional Secretary G20, Shri Abhay Thakur, and Director General RIS, Research and Information System for Developing Countries, Professor Sachin Chaturvedi. And before we begin this interactive session, let's take a look at this small audio-visual clip.
India, home to 1.3 billion people, is a confluence of religions, traditions, and customs. A thriving global center of technology and the world's largest democracy. As one of the oldest civilizations in the world with a rich cultural heritage and diversity, and as the fifth largest economy in the world, India is proud to assume the presidency of G20. As the country blooms into a new era, we look to another poignant symbol for humanity to emerge victorious from challenges. The lotus, the national flower of India, represents our history and culture and symbolizes spirituality, fruitfulness, wealth, and knowledge. And that's the inspiration for India's G20 logo design. The design, rendered in saffron, white, green, and blue, is drawn from the national flag of India. The 7 petals in the logo signify the 7 seas and the coming together of 7 continents at G20 India 2023. Sitting above the lotus is a representation of the earth, reflecting India's pro-planet approach to life and seeing the world as one family. From this, we derive the theme for G20 India 2023, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, one earth, one family, one future. A theme that brings the G20's focus on shared global growth, while being in harmony with nature. G20 India 2023. One earth, one family, one future.
Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam.
A curtain raiser to what follows next. Gentlemen, the usual drill for students is that they have to come prepared for questions, but today it's the other way around. Over to you, Professor Sachin Chaturvedi.
I think it's a great occasion for all of us. The inaugural has set the ball rolling, and now I think students' time to interact. We have more than 1,200 students already online with us, and so many are in this room as we are seeing. So the house is really full. There are a lot of questions in our minds, how to demystify and how do we address issues which are of great significance in terms of how we take it forward. So I think what I would do is to first bring in some questions from the room, There are people online, and we are flooded with several requests. My mobile is already on and flooded with several SMSs we are getting continuously. So what I would do is to just pick up students from JNU, DU, Jamia, and MIT, Sharda. They have already sent us a lot of questions, but I would just pick up one student from each of these universities in the room, and some online who are there, like Central University of Gujarat, Kerala. We have also from Assam, Indore, Bhubaneswar. So a lot of them are already waiting. I would just begin with Aishwarya Acharya from JNU. Maybe if she has access to mic, we can get cordless mic to her, and then we can quickly begin.
Good morning to the dignitaries on the dais. Sir, my question is that India has previously not been a keen participant of free trans-border data flow negotiations at G20 platforms. As a trusted leader of the developing countries, how does India, using its G20 presidency, intend this year to create a balanced data flow framework instead of a free data flow framework driven by common principles and standards?
Thank you. So what I would do is I would pick up 3 questions. This question I think would go to Ambassador Abhay Thakur. Let me bring in from Jamia Muskan Ahmed. Is she here, Muskan Ahmed? Yeah, right behind there.
Hello, sir. So, I am Muskan Ahmed, a student from Mechanical Engineering Department, Jamia Millia Islamia. So, my question is, how can India facilitate technology transfer from developed countries to developing countries, especially green technology? Yes.
Thank you. Thanks, Muskan. I would pick up one more from Delhi University. We have Navalpreet Kaur. Yeah, please.
Good morning, sir. What can be some of the tangible outcomes we can expect as India is taking over the presidency of G20? Thank you.
Could you get? Okay. And now from Amity University, Sakshi Birtane.
Good morning, sir. Progress comes at a great cost. More often than not, it is the cost of the environment. How can we ensure that the development is not stagnated while simultaneously adhering to various sustainable development goals set by the UN?
Thank you. So we go to Ambassador Abhay Thakur to respond to all the substantive ones.
So first of all, let me compliment the students for those very pertinent questions, because it shows that they have made that effort to understand what is the narrative and what is going on in G20 in very, very deep substantive terms. And I think this was part of the endeavor of Government of India, that we bring a deeper understanding of global issues, right to the last citizen of India and how it impacts. So I'm really, at the outset, let me just compliment the students for some very, very relevant, very important questions. I will endeavor to answer them and then we can have further discussions during the various interactions that we will have as part of the Jan Bhagidari. So the first question on balanced data flow. You're very right. I think what we are trying to do is to look at the entire digital public good discussion in 2, I would say, frameworks. One is about national public digital infrastructure. India has made great strides in its public digital platforms, where we have actually delivered a number of public goods through the JAM Trinity, through the Aadhaar mobile banking combination. We have delivered a number of solutions in the field of SDGs, in health, and so on. So this is a very national infrastructure, digital infrastructure. And one of the prime examples of the success was CoWIN platform, through which nearly 2 billion vaccinations have been administered. The other debate that is going on in G20 is the cross-border data flow, the data-free flow with trust. On this, the number of countries in G20 have varying opinions. Primarily centered around data privacy and also data localization. So what we are going to do is to find a good balance between these two narratives. Digital public infrastructure to deliver public digital goods, both nationally, and also sharing our expertise with the rest of the world so that the same model can be applied. Let's not forget, about 130 countries in the world do not have digital identity. And more than 50 do not have, some sort of, payment mechanism. So there is a lot India has to tell. India has achieved through digital empowerment in 6 or 7 years what it would have taken about 50 years to achieve. So we are very much in favor of a balanced discussion on the entire digital debate, both national public digital infrastructure as well as support digital flow and data free flow with trust to enable the delivery of public digital goods. So that is how the balance will be achieved. That was one. The second, about technology transfer, that's a very important question. Just give you one quick instance in the field of energy transition. The role of technology becomes very important, because whether we are talking of battery storage, whether we are talking of green energy transition, whether we are talking of green hydrogen, critical minerals, all of these are extremely important to ensure that we can achieve green transition to meet our climate goals. So what we are trying to do is to create a win-win scenario where technological collaboration with the West helps the world achieve, for example, a global net zero, helps to achieve successful and sustainable energy transition. And with this narrative, we hope that technological collaborations, in fact, in the last two declarations, both in Rome and in Bali, I would request you to read them. The word critical enabler has come in for the first time. Finance and technology as critical enablers. This was because India brought it in, and this will be something which will be further strengthened for the New Delhi declaration. Coming to tangible outcomes, well, a number of outcomes are there. In fact, even today's meeting, for example, is an important outcome because we are having a discussion on global issues on which understanding will become much deeper. But going forward, we are talking of things like deliberations on a new ambitious quantified goal for climate finance. We are talking of enhancing the mandate of multilateral development banks. We are talking of accelerating progress on SDGs. If we can universalize or at least broaden the acceptability of the model of public digital platforms, this will be a huge tangible outcome for our IT sector and all our entrepreneurs. We are talking of a new engagement group called Startup 20, which India will start. And the discussion on startup ecosystem will lead to several important outcomes. We are talking of tech-enabled education, which again is an important outcome for students around the world. And we are also talking about connecting the farmers with the marketplace, food value chain, so that the ordinary suppliers and the consumers can connect with each other better. The last question was was about strengthening development. I think part of it I've already answered. An accelerated action plan. We will be midway between the 2015 and 2030 when it comes to Agenda 2030, the Sustainable Development Goals. And 2023 will be a great year to review the entire SDG progress and come up with a new action plan on achievement of SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Abhijit. Emerge now is in terms of the priorities that are there. Maybe I think I would just pick up one question from our colleagues who are on the web. I see that NYAS Bangalore, Avishka, and Symbiosis International University, Pune, Sneha Sengupta. So any of you who are there on the web, if you can identify, raise your hand, we can quickly catch you. So from NYAS Bangalore, Avishka, and Sneha Sengupta from Symbiosis International University. Please identify them and unmute. Yeah, can you start again, please?
I'm currently Sneha from Symbiosis International University.
Yeah.
My question pertains to the Sustainable Development Goals. As we all know that the SDGs have steered India's development vision since its very inception. But due to the pandemic, we've seen that it has taken a back seat a little bit. So what does India propose to concretely do to address the progress of the Vision 2050 or the Agenda 2030 which suffered a lag due to the pandemic? Thank you.
Thank you, Abhijit.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Very quickly, we are talking of a new action plan for achievement of SDGs, which will have many elements in it. In particular, we will carry forward the discussions in Bali, where we talked about enhanced mandate of multilateral development banks for achieving SDGs. You know, the whole challenge in achievement of SDGs are twin, finance and technology. And on both of them, particularly on the finance side, enhancing mandate of the MDBs, looking at international institutions for the 21st century where credit and funding can be available for SDGs, prioritizing green transition. You know, green and development should go hand in hand. This is something that India will highlight, that climate finance and SDGs are two sides of the same coin. So this is something that is very much a focus area. In addition, I would say, using digital platforms, for example, the aspirational district program of Government of India, under which districts are mapped for achievement of SDGs, and digital tools are used to the maximum for mapping SDG progress nationally, and also, thereafter encouraging their speedier implementation. So I would say digital technology, finance, ensuring that green development becomes the main, plank and expand the SDG narrative to include climate as well, and MDB credit enhancement will be some of the efforts that we would make towards faster and speedier achievement of SDGs.
Thank you. Thanks. I think I also have now from Nalanda University, Azad. Can you hear us? Can you unmute yourself? And Avishka from NYAS Bangalore.
Yeah,
From Nalanda University, so I can see the Honorable Vice Chancellor. But do we have the student here, Azad Hind, who is to?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
Thank you, sir. As Honorable Prime Minister, envisions for one earth, one family, and one future, can we showcase this through Nalanda, which is perhaps an example with its 500-acre green campus where students from more than 32 countries meet here, and there is a convergence of culture, and the focus is on sustainability, on green campus, on sustainable management, and the courses started out here, it has more a humanistic approach towards problem solving.
Thank you. I would request Mr. Muktesh Pardeshi to respond to you.
Well, thank you for your observation. Through the University Connect, we are engaged in reaching out to several universities, not only 75 universities which are already identified. We also intend to partner with Nalanda University and interact with the faculty and student there. Nalanda is part of our cultural heritage. So when delegates arrive in India in different parts of the country, as part of the excursion program, we intend to take them outside the meeting rooms, and I'm sure Nalanda will be one of the such places.
Thanks, Muktesh. So friends, Honorable EM has already arrived, and we would continue this conversation. As I mentioned in the beginning, Honorable External Affairs Minister was extremely keen that he should interact with students, and this is a very good lineup, sir. I just mentioned that more than 1,200 students have joined us online, and around 150 are here in this room. So they are extremely excited. Lot of questions we have already received. So maybe we stop this session now, and would very much like to invite the Honorable External Affairs Minister here on the dais. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And it is here we end session number 2 of the University Connect program. For the young participants, we have a super bonus. Honorable External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, has arrived to grace this event, and I'm sure the young minds here will gain tremendously during their interaction with someone who speaks for India and the world listens. May I please request Dr. S. Jaishankar to please join us on this stage. I would also like to request Chairman University Grants Commission, Professor M. Jagdish Kumar, G20 Chief Coordinator, Shri Harshvardhan Shringla, Joint Secretary, Policy, Planning and Research, Dr. Sumit Seth, and Director General RIS, Research and Information System for Developing Countries, Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, to also please join Dr. Jaishankar on this stage, please. Gentlemen. I would now like to invite Joint Secretary, Policy, Planning and Research, Dr. Sumit Seth, to open the final session by saying a few words.
Honorable External Affairs Minister, Chairman UGC, G20 Chief Coordinator, Director General RIS, seniors and colleagues, I am truly honored to welcome the esteemed Vice Chancellors of universities and thousands of students who have joined us today, both in person and in virtual format, on this auspicious day when we assume the presidency of G20. From the very beginning, our Honorable Prime Minister envisioned that our G20 presidency should not just be a formal government-to-government engagement, but also a Jan Andolan, a Jan Bhagiyadari, a people's movement. In line with this vision, and the guidance from our Honorable External Affairs Minister, we have reached out to the youth of our country to inform, to create interest, and to initiate the youth of our country into the process of nation building. In other words, engaging young minds for the future of our country. This is the central idea of the G20 University Outreach Connect. The youth should feel and tell themselves that this is our summit. We all know that India is a young country, one of the youngest countries in the world. As Honorable Prime Minister had mentioned, that there is a vision for a Viksit Bharat by 2047, and this will be realized by you, the students, the youth of today, and the future of the country. India has done many things towards a better world. For environment, we have launched Mission Life. For agriculture, we are promoting millets and responsible consumption. In global conflicts, we are advocating dialogue, diplomacy, and peace. For inclusive growth, we have introduced UPI, Aadhaar, Jan Dhan, the JAM Trinity. Just as India has implemented game-changing initiatives, flagship programs in many sectors, you, the students, the future of India, will provide the world with solutions and innovations for challenges which are yet unseen. This is our goal. We will not just build a prosperous and Atmanirbhar Bharat, but we will also build a better and harmonious world. That is why the central theme of our G20 presidency is One Earth, One Family, One Future, or in other words, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. I thank you once again for this memorable opportunity I have to make the opening remarks in this valedictory session. I wish you all the best. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Dr. Seth. Next, we invite Chairman of the University Grants Commission, Professor M. Jagdish Kumar, to share his insight.
My dear students in this hall and across the country, academicians, heads of institutions, Shri Harshvardhan Shringla, G20 Chief Coordinator, Dr. S. Jaishankar, Honorable External Affairs Minister, and Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, Dr. Sumit Seth, distinguished guests, my pranams to all of you. It is so wonderful that the journey of G20 presidency is beginning by connecting with the universities and the youth. It indicates the confidence and the hope our country has in our youth. Let me quickly come to the point. Today, as part of G20, we are about 60% of the global population. And even as part of the entire global community, we are facing three challenges: the growing inequalities, the failing economic systems, and the deteriorating environment. This is on one side. And on the other side, if you look at India, between the ages of 15 and 25, we have about 300 million youth. And as a professor who has been interacting with students throughout my career, and many of you as academicians, you must have observed one unique quality about these youngsters. They want to be learners. They want to be creative and innovative. They want to be problem solvers and solution providers. They want to critically think and question the status quo. They want to take risks and learn from those failures if there are any failures in their journey, and most of all, they want to become good human beings. These are the aspirations of our youth. So what do we do? What can we do to meet the aspirations of our youth? On one side, I said we have global challenges. On the other side, we have the aspirational youth. The key ingredient to solve the major global challenges that we are facing is meeting the aspirations of our youth. And that's the reason why 2 years ago, India has come up with a visionary national education policy. During last 2 years, we have been implementing this national education policy, bringing a lot of reforms in our educational system. So, how does the national education policy meet the aspirations of our students? If you look at our educational system, either in India or globally, it is very rigid. It hasn't really focused on the cognitive ability of our students, the financial capabilities of our students, their aspirations. It has remained very rigid. The national education policy is bringing flexibility and freedom to the students so that they can realize their aspirations. And as part of that, we have introduced multidisciplinary holistic education in our university system. We are working on building the teacher capability and improving the governance systems in our educational institutions, improving the research and innovation ecosystem in our universities. We are also working on providing better quality education to our students through appropriate assessment and accreditation. Equity, access, affordability, and future readiness, these are also issues on which we are working. And most importantly, the digital empowerment of our students. We are working on introducing how technology can bring high quality education to every student across the country. We are also working on building skills among our students. We are working on a scheme of establishing 500 skill centers across the country in our university system to empower our students. We are also working on internationalization of our education. And this is an important thing when we are discussing about the G20. UGC would like to work as a facilitator, as a catalyst to bring international education into our country by inviting well-known foreign universities to set up their campuses here, and also by encouraging our students to access high-quality education abroad through twinning, dual, and joint degree programs. There are many, many such reforms that we are bringing, and the G20 presidency provides us an opportunity to showcase our national education policy as a template for empowering the youth, not just only in India, but across the globe. I would like to assure the G20 Secretariat that UGC, the universities, and the student community across the country will work with you during the next 1 year during our presidency and make sure that India is projected as a country of peace and happiness. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Kumar. May I now request Honorable External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, to address the gathering.
Students in the hall and those who have logged in from elsewhere,
teachers, vice chancellors, heads of academic institutions, my friends on the dais. It is a very great pleasure to join you all today at University Connect, where we engage young minds on important issues. Today's event is focused on the assumption of the G20 presidency by India. For reasons that I will explain, this is not a development that should be regarded as just one more diplomatic happening. On the contrary, it is a crucial responsibility that is being assumed by India at a very challenging time in world politics and at an inflection point in India's own history. And we are going to do the G20 very differently, and today's event itself is proof of that. Now, you are all aware that the G20 brings together the 20 major economies of the world. They represent 85% of the global GDP, 75% of international trade, and 2/3 of the world's population. In addition, participants in the group include the major international organizations like the UN, the WTO, WHO, the World Bank, IMF, ILO, ASEAN, the African Union, the International Solar Alliance, CDRI, etc. As the host, it is also India's prerogative to invite guest nations, and we have exercised that right in respect of the UAE, Bangladesh, Mauritius, Egypt, Nigeria, Oman, Singapore, the Netherlands, and Spain. So as you can see, this is actually a gathering of extraordinary importance, and one that in many ways is unparalleled in our history. But it is not just the collective weight of the participants that you should take note of. The very process of holding the G20 itself is uniquely impactful. There will, of course, be the G20 summit in September 2023 in New Delhi. But in addition, there are almost 200 meetings at various other levels, from ministers and officials to domain experts, civil society, and of course the youth. Given its significance, we would like G20 not to be a Delhi-centric set of events, but one that is hosted, indeed one that is celebrated across the width and breadth of our country. By doing so, the world will get to know better the fullness of India's extraordinary diversity and rich heritage. Similarly, our own citizens will develop a sharper appreciation of the world, its challenges, and its opportunities. So we must all approach the G20 and its delegates in the true spirit of Atithi Deva Bhava, and understand that as a result of the G20, it will, in a sense, make the world more India-ready and make India more world-ready. Now, our G20 presidency is taking place at a very critical moment in international affairs. Over the last 3 years, we have seen the economic and social devastation caused by the COVID pandemic, quite apart from its human toll. It has aggravated the financial situation of developing countries, undermined the pursuit of sustainable development goals, and created a health divide between the developed and the developing. To this was added the knock-on effects of the Ukraine conflict, especially the difficulties in the availability and the affordability of fuel, of food, of fertilizers. And there were then the longer-term trends like extreme climate, whose events are now unfolding with greater frequency and more impact. And don't forget the perennial challenges that we have faced, whether it is terrorism or black money. And the G20 is in fact the premier grouping which is devoted to addressing the financial, economic, and development challenges of the world. And in these difficult times, it is therefore particularly important that world leaders focus on the right issues, issues that especially affect the more vulnerable sections of the world. Now, the attention obviously needs to be given not just to the problems, but equally, perhaps even more so, to finding viable solutions for them. In this regard, India's example is of increasing relevance to the rest of the world. Whether it is our last mile delivery done using digital platforms, a way of responding to the COVID and other public health challenges, or indeed the transformation in green and clean energy that we have seen in the last few years. There are very good reasons why today the world is taking a much deeper interest in us. The G20 presidency offers an opportunity to share our story with others, particularly those who may transpose some of our experiences on their performance or challenges. And it is also a time when we must become the voice of the global South that is otherwise underrepresented in such forums. Countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America trust India to speak up for them. We have of late been in the forefront of expressing their concerns on fuel, on food, on fertilizers. And we share too the apprehension that sustainable development, climate action, and climate justice could be sidetracked due to more dominant issues. But our task will end not just with articulation. India has to take the lead in pushing for collective action, and that is exactly what we intend to do at the G20. Now, there are established mechanisms and working platforms to take forward various issues that come up in the G20 agenda. But the G20 naturally responds to the pressing issues of the day. It is also a tradition in the presidency, for the presidency, to flag concerns that are most immediate and seek support of the larger membership. Where India is concerned, some of the priorities are self-evident. Energy security and food security are two such examples. After the pandemic, there is a global expectation that more equitable solutions would be found for health challenges. And as the driver of the widely appreciated vaccine Maitri, the global South has hopes that India would take forward this cause. Our commitment to climate action and climate justice is again very well recognized. This is even more so in the context of national actions and policies on this subject in the last 8 years. Most of all, our digital prowess and its effective application on the ground, that has really caught the world's attention. While noting all these developments, let me address some specific issues that are likely to come up in the G20 context. As a civilizational state, it was imperative that India is not only conscious of its heritage and culture, but brings those perspectives to bear on contemporary issues. As we currently consider the challenges of climate action, it is natural that we reassert our innate reverence for nature and search for solutions that are not just material but also behavioral. We would seek to encourage a rethink around the world, both on how we produce, but equally important, on how we consume. Green transition at scale is possible only when climate action is converted into a people's movement. During our G20 presidency, we will spotlight life as in lifestyle for environment, with its associated environmentally sustainable and responsible choices at the level of individual lifestyles as well as national development. Only then will it lead to globally transformative actions, resulting in a cleaner, greener, and bluer future. We will make life a global movement, one that envisions placing the prevalent use and dispose economy with a circular economy. It intends to nudge individuals to undertake simple acts in their everyday life that can contribute to effectively address the challenges of climate change, environment degradation, energy crisis, and rapid sustainable growth. Pro-planet people adopting fundamentally sustainable lifestyles will change the way we do business in the 21st century. India will seek to be a catalyst of that change. When taking over the G20 presidency in Bali, Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke about a sense of trusteeship. We want that message also to go out from the G20, that for the sake of future generations, for people like you, every generation should leave the planet in a better shape than it inherited it. After due deliberation, we have therefore taken up Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or One Earth, One Family, One Future, as our G20 presidency theme. Drawing from our cultural ethos, this is a strong assertion of beliefs in shared and common solutions. It may apply to climate action and life, where the power of example, the diffusion of technology, and the spread of best practices can make a decisive difference. The same drivers are even more powerful when it comes to digital delivery, in order to ensure that we leave no one behind. And remember, we have demonstrated it even at a time of extreme stress by undertaking successfully Vaccine Maitri. The G20 is a diverse platform that seeks to forge common ground on key issues among prominent countries. Our endeavor is to make that consensus more relevant through a wider process of consultation. Indeed, our very choice of guest countries is reflective of this intent. Harmonizing various interests is something that is ingrained deeply in India's history and culture. We have long been a pluralistic and consultative society who have debated issues openly before we arrive at a decision. Since this is deeply ingrained in our DNA, we have never been insecure with diversity. Our essential unity is not only the basis for pluralism, but it is also a source of confidence for engaging the world. As the mother of democracy, India's G20 presidency will be consultative, it will be collaborative, and it will be decisive. Having noted that, we must also recognize that the global order today is not truly reflective of the state of the world. Institutions and practices created 75 years ago still dominate global decision-making. A representative and democratic international order must press for change, not just in the United Nations, but in other international institutions as well. While we strive to progress on this broad agenda of issues, the G20 cannot be impervious to immediate developments that have a direct consequence on global well-being. This year, much of that debate has centered around the Ukraine conflict. As you all know, the Prime Minister had declared that this is not an era of war, and that dialogue and diplomacy alone can provide solutions. At Bali, the significance of this position was widely recognized by G20 leaders. In fact, the universality of this message is being appreciated as well. Many of you today would have read in the newspapers that you would have seen in the morning or read on your phones, Prime Minister's own thoughts about assuming the G20 presidency. And that, by the way, has appeared in newspapers across the world. Now, we should reflect on what, to my mind, were the 8 key points that he has articulated in his speech. And those points are: 1, the greatest challenges can be solved not by fighting with each other, but by acting together. 2, technology gives us the means to address problems on a humanity-wide scale. 3, digital public goods that we have created are increasingly perceived by the world as delivering revolutionary progress. 4, India's experiences can provide insights for possible solutions. 5, our G20 priorities will be shaped by the interests of the Global South. 6, we will encourage sustainable and environment-friendly lifestyles based on trusteeship over nature. 7, we will seek to depoliticize the global supply of food, fertilizers, and medical products. And 8, we will encourage an honest conversation among the most powerful countries. So, as the youth of India, it is important that you are not only aware of the G20 activities, but also of India's approach that I have just summarized. Under the Youth 20 Engagement Group of the G20, India will focus on skill development, on the future of work, access to quality health, and youth as equal partners in the development agenda. During the year, in the spirit of Jan Bhagidari, I would encourage the youth to conduct and host a wide range of practical activities like university lectures, roundtable discussions, model UN conferences in colleges on G20 agenda, and welcoming G20 delegations, including through cultural performance at various meeting venues. Remember, each one of you present physically here and virtually across, each one of you is an ambassador of India to the G20. I urge you to collectively be the radiant lotus of creative brilliance and generational optimism. Our success in the G20 will surely draw strength from all of you. So thank you again for your attention.
Our sincere thanks to India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, for sharing with us his thoughts, his wisdom. Now, I would like to request Director General RIS, Professor Sachin Chaturvedi, to kindly coordinate and be the bridge between the questions the students here have and the answers by Dr. Jaishankar.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Honorable Minister, for your interaction with us today. We have students who are extremely excited. I'm sure many more hands would go up. Some of you have already sent us emails, but I would be more democratic, would open it up and would invite your suggestions. Honorable EM has already set out the broad priorities. He has alluded to the excellent write-up that Honorable Prime Minister has contributed across media today. Almost all newspapers have carried it today. Some of you might have already seen it. As he summarized, those 8 principles are there, which are quite exciting in terms of how we are going to go forward. And after this, today is just a beginning. After this, we are going to visit each of your universities and do with you several activities which Honorable External Affairs Minister mentioned in terms of seminars, discussions, publications, lot of various modalities of engagement. So let me now open up the floor. Please have short questions, no introduction. But those who want to have questions may please raise their hands, and I would recognize. Maybe I should start from here on the right-hand side. Yes, the girl right there. Yeah. You can just introduce yourself, have short question. I would, in the first round, take 3 questions, and then I would come back to the Honorable Minister.
Okay, sir. So this is Shivani Jha from Sharda University. As the theme suggests, one earth, one family, one future. So who all are included in one family? Only human being or other living creatures as well? And as the sir said that each one of us is in India. So we are only representing ourselves or other living creatures as well. And also our yogi culture never promoted these non-vegetarian food or any kind of harassment to other living creatures. But we are doing it on very large scale.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Please have your very short questions. I have already Lipika Karp from JNU. So if you can just identify and come up. Yeah, please, yeah. Can we have mic here? Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning to the dignitaries. So my question is that in global forums like BRICS and COP, India and China share convergence of interests as well as of ideas, with both being developing nations. However, at other platforms like Quad and United Nations, our interests become contradictory and to some extent conflicting. Therefore, I would like to know, how will India manage to maintain the balance between this cooperation and contradiction now that India will be setting the agenda for the debate in one of the most relevant organizations, that is G20. Thank you.
Thank you. One more right here in the middle, in the front. Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Karthik Garg. I'm a master's student at International Relations, Jawaharlal Nehru University. So India has always been supportive of multilateralism when it comes to the foreign policy. And yeah, as you also mentioned in one of the conference that India does not want to join one of the bloc but consider itself as a bloc because we are one of the fifth largest economy and everything. But looking into the challenges from those countries who want to maintain the status quo, so how do you see G20 presidency as acting as the bridge to make the multilateral world more unified, sir?
Thank you. Thank you for the questions. The first question, I made the point to mention the fact that it's important for us today, including in the G20 context, to reassert and re-articulate our reverence for nature. And reverence for nature doesn't mean completely human-centric. I mean, it's nature in its entirety. So there are, deep traditions in our country. It's part of our culture. In many of us, I mean, it may not have been explicitly taught. It's it's habit. It's habit which we pick up from our families, from the environment around us, and it's just often we don't reflect on our habits. We sometimes, frankly, imitate the habits of other people. I'm not saying that's necessarily wrong, but certainly the more we delve into our own beliefs and traditions and heritage, I think there are sources of strength, including in the precise point you made, which is that we should be caring of nature in its widest possible definition, including all beings and all forms of nature. Now, if I were to move from that to something very different, which is how do you, because this is in a sense that's a lifestyle question she's asking. Yours is more a statecraft kind of question. The statecraft here is really how do you manage contradictions? How do you have different agendas, different partners, different abilities to deal with them? And that is actually the challenge for diplomacy. Now, it is also a particular challenge for bigger countries, because bigger countries have more varied interests. So when you have more varied interests, you have different kinds of partners. Now, if you look today at who are our partners, our political partners, our security partners, our developmental partners, our energy partners, our digital partners would all be different combinations of people. So it's not just how do you deal with two sets of people. Depending on the issue, you will get a different combination of countries to deal with. Now, how does that play into G20? It is precisely because we have, shall I say, grown that ability to deal with on different agendas with different partners. That is the value that we bring to the G20. Today, I'll be very honest with you, the world is very polarized. Many of the issues that I put, I mean, they sound very measured when I use the words that I did. But for a lot of countries, these are very passionate issues about which they have very strong feelings. even having everybody in the room was a real challenge in the last G20 meeting in Bali. So a country like India, which is independent-minded, which, in a sense is respected to a great extent, is trusted, which has a kind of a middle ground to bring differing parties to the table. And it's not just us alone. I mean, we work with other countries. We were, for example, very supportive of the Indonesian presidency in Bali. I think the value for countries who are in the middle, who are good at forging common ground, who have multiple relationships, I think that has grown in a polarized world. And my sense is the value of the Indian presidency will be demonstrated precisely because we have that trait. The third question, which is the status quo, how do you deal with the status quo? It's an interesting question you are asking because till 2008, G20 started in 2008. Till 2008, there was something called the G7. Briefly, it was a G8. So, they took in Russia, then they took out Russia. And the belief was that the big world issues, the global issues, would be decided by the most developed countries who were the G7, who were primarily northern countries. This was basically Europe and North America together. And they found when there was a crisis in 2008 that it was not possible for them anymore to produce realistic responses to that global financial crisis. So G20 itself is a statement that the status quo has to evolve, that it has to change. But because it changed from G7 to G20, it doesn't mean that is the last word. It is just one step in the change of that status quo. Now, just think to yourself, I'm now going maybe just 6, 7, 8 years by the end of the decade. By the end of the decade, for sure, we'll be the most populous country. Almost certainly will be the third largest economy in the world. Our human resources by 2030 in a knowledge economy, in a world which is dominated by artificial intelligence, our human resources will be much more critical for the global economy. Now, tell me, if that is the situation, how long will we be kept out of the crucial decisions on running of the world? So I would say, in a way, time is on my side. That with each passing day, I've been in foreign policy now for 45 years. This was not what it was 45 years ago. But with each passing day, I think the world sees the value of India. And a lot of that would depend how we do at home. The more we do at home, after all, look at the crucial issues today before the G20. Health. Okay. Why is the world respecting India today? Because we could produce vaccines, because we could have the vaccines, as shots in the arm, because we had a platform to organize that, because we had digital delivery to take care of people's financial and food needs while all of this was happening. So similarly, they look at digital. In the old days, for them, digital was the back office. Today, they know digital, India's role in digital is much more than that. We are actually, in a way, an exemplar of how we are delivering on the ground, that last mile delivery that I spoke about. Now, it could be in other areas. We are, in our entire region, we are seen as the first responder. When the tsunami happened in 2004, people turned to America and to Japan and Europe. Today, if something happens in the Indian Ocean, they look and, and turn to us and say, where is India? So, the status quo by definition is not tenable. There will be countries with vested interest who will seek to slow it down. We all know who they are. Our effort would be to make sure, and the G20 presidency will give us an opportunity to demonstrate to the world that, this is India. After 75 years, we have arrived at this situation. The next 25 years, these are the possibilities we can do. So that is why I said, we have to make the world India ready. And for that, all of you have to contribute in your own way.
Now I would go to web, and we already have a lot of requests from various partner institutions here. Let me first go to Nalanda University. I would also come to NIAS Bangalore, and then Central University of Gujarat. So these three I have identified based on their requests. Maybe I think we can just allow unmute them, and in that order we can have.
My question. Being at Nalanda University, I wish to ask, how can we bring the global south into powerful conversation in a polarized world in context of G20?
Question, can you please repeat that?
My question is, being at Nalanda University, I wish to ask, how can we bring the global south into powerful conversation in a polarized world in context of G20?
Thank you. Thank you. Can we go to NIAS Bangalore and Central University of Gujarat?
My name is Harini from NIAS. My question is, how can India use the G20 presidency to enhance its engagement in the global commons and among new emerging technological domains for developmental goals? Indonesia had something called Space 20. Should we be looking at outer space, AI, cyberspace, and R&D in these domains for this year?
Can you please come back again? I'm sorry. Others, please mute yourselves. We are not able to hear. But would you please come back and repeat your question?
Good morning, sir. My name is Harini from NIAS. My question is, how can India use the G20 presidency to enhance our engagement in the global commons and among new emerging technological domains for our common developmental goals? For example, Indonesia had a Space 20. Should India also be looking at outer space, AI, cyberspace, and R&D in these domains during the year?
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Now, can we have our colleagues from Central University of Gujarat?
Good afternoon. My question is, how can young scholars contribute to formulate better policies to cope up with coastal security challenges like trafficking or ecological degradation in Gujarat or other sensitive areas?
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I would now hand it over to the Honorable Minister.
Thank you. So the first question is really, in a polarized world, how do you include or get G20 into the conversations? That, in fact, is one of our biggest commitments during the presidency, because what we have seen during the COVID, and especially this year, which is much more polarized, the polarization may occur elsewhere. The people who suffer most are the global south. So if fuel prices go up, if food prices go up, it's not like the developed countries don't feel the pain, but there's a big difference, when you are at $60, $70, $80,000 per annum and when you are $1,000 per annum. So those who don't have any margins, who have no savings, who are already kind of on the edge, they don't have that ability today to take the pain which this polarization is spreading around the world. And that is why, our intention is to see how best we can get the leaders to focus on what we think and what a large part of the world thinks are the right issues. And, it's not something which is necessarily in specifically in India's mind. Our process of consultation, I travel around, the Prime Minister meets a lot of leaders at different ways. We get a sense of what the world feeling is. We do think that there are issues out there which need to be brought to the table, and definitely, how do you keep the sustainable development agenda? How do countries deal with debt? How is it that climate change is not affected by a lack of additional resources? These are all issues today, and our intention is very much to be a champion of Global South and find ways. And that's why the majority of our guests who we brought in, please note, are actually from the Global South. So that's what we are trying to do there. On the second issue, the global commons issue, it's a very good question, because again, what we have seen maybe in the last decade is more countries are acting nationally, and the ability to work together to protect and preserve and nurture the global commons is actually decreasing. And the idea that one or two countries can bear this burden sometimes has used to happen in the past. I think that era is now behind us. So again, our intention going into G20 is very much to look at collaborative solutions for many challenges, including some of the issues which were highlighted. But associated with this, just look also at things which are happening. They may be happening outside the G20, but it shows a mindset which we will be taking into G20. Some of you would have read recently about, there was a satellite from Bhutan, which was launched just a few days ago. Or as you saw during, COVID, our willingness to work with a lot of countries in the Global South. You are all students, You would see today the number of foreign students in Indian universities. We are seeking to expand it. We have specific programs to different regions, from PhD to bachelor's degree. How do we actually get more students in? We are looking at distance health and distance education as ways of connecting more with the people. So I think an India today which is willing to, which has more capabilities, which has stronger technologies, which has, as the Prime Minister keeps reminding us, a heritage, a tradition of humanistic thinking. I think we can actually, demonstrate a difference. Now, whether other countries share it or not share it, that is up to them. But at least from our point of view, we can show, okay, I had this opportunity, I used this opportunity to the best, to the world's good. And I think that's a very, very powerful message that will and should come out. The third issue, what can young scholars do? I mean, first of all, young scholars can do a lot, partly because they're scholars, but even more because they're young. And I'm not saying this to flatter you, because your ways of communicating are very, very different. Your ways of spreading message is, far more effective. I would sit and read a newspaper. You're done with the equivalent of a newspaper in the first 30 seconds after you get up. So if you look at these big challenges that we have, what are these challenges? A lot of them are awareness challenges. Trafficking will continue if people are not aware of what trafficking is about. Coastal, habitation and environment will be destroyed if people do not realize actually what is happening out there. So the power of the younger generation actually to, think back, I give you some very small examples, say fireworks. How much fireworks used to trouble us, till actually there was a movement saying, look, this is not good for the environment. I could cite to you other examples like this, and a lot of this change is actually coming from younger people, and I think the ability of the younger people to spread the message and influence often people who are much more set in their habits is a very, very strong motivation. So I would absolutely encourage younger generation to take on that sense of mission, and I think that's very much Prime Minister's expectation also of the younger generation.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Minister has also agreed to have one more round. Let me quickly come to Tripura University, Pondicherry University, and Indore. All three are waiting. I would very much like them to come online and quickly ask very brief questions. Tripura University, can we have Tripura University?
Can we have Tripura University? Namaskar, sir. My question is, how G20 can help in the development of a small northern state like our Tripura?
Thank you. Pondicherry University.
Thank you. Pondicherry University.
Can we have Pondicherry University? If not, DAVV Indore.
Namaste, sir. So I would like to know, I would like to understand our role being a country, what role India will be playing during this presidency. Being a researcher, how can we contribute to the presidency period, and how it will be beneficial for India, and especially what sectors of economy we'll be focusing upon. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, last question from the room. Anyone? My goodness, we would have to really make a choice, sir. I think you would have to spend half a day with them at least. So I can't decide about this. Maybe I think I would go right at the end, in the middle. Yes, there.
Thank you so much. Namaskaram. So, what are the biggest geopolitical hurdles and challenges to India while successfully organizing G20 summit, and what are the solutions to it? Furthermore, is it correct to say that this G20 presidentship will be a catalyst to transform India into a superpower and a developed country much ahead of our own estimated targets?
The first question, if I understood it, was, how would it help a state like Tripura? I think that's a question which all other states can also ask with equal logic. And I'll tell you how it would help. I mean, first of all, to the extent that there is overall national gain out of G20, gain of influence, gain of image, gain of recognition, gain of familiarity with our country, it will apply across the country. So every state of India would gain. But what we are also trying to do is actually see that G20 delegates have an opportunity to visit as many states of India as possible, as many cities of India as possible. So, as I said, the Prime Minister day one told us, he said, this is not a Delhi event. Take it across the country. Take it out of the capital. So, there will be naturally a few events. It is a capital of the country. But beyond that, our intention is to take it across the length and breadth of India. And I would say this, I have myself been attending G20s from 2015 regularly. I missed 1 year, but otherwise the last 8 G20s I've done. What happens in a G20 typically is delegates, for whatever meeting will come, often they are regular delegates, they're domain experts or they're officials. So whatever impressions they gather, they will spread it in their peer group. They will also pass it back into their system. So what would happen, say for Tripura, would be whichever meeting is held in Tripura, there will be a set of people, I assure you, who had no feel for Tripura before, would probably not have been there. But as a consequence of the G20, would have come there, spent time there, maybe eaten local meals there, seen the local culture there, and gone back. And in their minds, definitely Tripura is very, very strongly on the map. So the whole idea in that sense is really to make the world much more appreciative and understanding of the diversity and the richness of India. And that is really something, as I said, we want to make this a people's G20 so that we have, the people who go back must not just have a sense of a state or a city, they must have a sense of a people. And that is very much our expectation. We are very confident that this approach of the Prime Minister would work very, very well. The second question, the researchers, how would the economy benefit? I'll club the two, the economy and the geopolitical hurdles in a way. Look, it's not like G20 I mean, yes, of course, there will be some benefits. A lot of people would come. There'll be a lot of direct activity. After all, MICE itself today is recognized as a substantial economic activity. But the indirect benefits of the world's understanding and appreciation of India will also translate into the world's economic judgments about India. When people come and see our capabilities, some government, some business, some officials, some activists, some organization will say, those are 3 new things I didn't know the Indians could do or do so well. So we expect, whether it's economic issues or whether it's their political assessment of India, whether, it's a cumulative sense of the country, its history, its heritage, its civilization, that will certainly grow. Now, in terms of the geopolitical hurdles, in a way, I answered that question earlier, that it is a very polarized world. I'm not underestimating it. I know there will be challenges, but we have contributed in our own way in support of the Indonesian presidency. So we have a good sense of what some of these challenges will be. And we do think that India's good standing, the fact that people know we are an independent-minded country, we will do what is right, we will do what is good for the world, I think that will stand us in very good stead, and I'm very confident we will overcome the geopolitical challenges. Now, having said that, I felt really bad how many hands were raised, so okay, I'll do one more round, but absolutely the last round.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir. I think that's great. Okay, please.
He gets first mover's advantage.
Please.
A very good afternoon, sir. I am Raghvendra Dadij from MIT University, Haryana. Sir, I would like to ask you that as India is assuming the presidency of G20, and we also took over the chair of SCO on the 16th of September, there is a great opportunity to show the world the capability of India in becoming Vishwaguru. How we are looking forward to take some bold moves in the discussions related to global crisis, keeping our national interest in the forefront, and also put forward our candidature as a permanent member in UNSC. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Let me go in that corner. Yes, please. Yeah.
Thank you so much, sir, for the recognition. A very warm good afternoon. I wanted to ask, as India has already shown its digital prowess through platforms like CoWIN and UPI, right? Is there any other sector that India aims to pioneer, knowing the entrepreneurship and the spirit that the nation has shown? My name is Shivoham, and I am from MIT University.
Thank you. Let me have this girl right here in the middle.
Hello, sir. I'm Tashifa Shakil from Jamia Millia Islamia. This is a sort of a personal question. So in the first session, sir was talking about MUNs and how, like in Model United Nations, we can keep the theme as G20. Coincidentally, we are having an MUN, Jamia MUN in February, and I just wanted to ask you, because we're talking a lot about G20, but there's a lot of confusion about what it is. So can you give us some ideas about what can be the agendas for an event like Model United Nations? Thank you.
Okay. The first question, look, there are many things we have done which would be relevant to the rest of the world. A lot of it is relevant to the developing world, but a lot of it may be relevant to other people as well. The presidencies that we do, these are opportunities. I mean, the biggest, of course, is the G20. I'm impressed that you also picked up on the SCO, and there'll be other occasions like this, because we are today joining many more organizations. our leaderships of those organizations make a difference. People have expectations of us. So when there is a, it was not like foreign policy didn't happen earlier. They happened earlier too. It is just that at that time, maybe we were not so strongly in the world's radar. Their expectations of us was not so strong. So with the passage of time, I think more and more countries do have takeaways when they deal with us. There can be technology takeaways, it could be digital, it could be health, it could be climate, because this country is undergoing an extraordinary pace of change right now. So even when I go out, I mean, it's very interesting. It's, I often do my foreign policy conversation, but at least half the conversations I have with other foreign ministers, they actually ask me saying, I read this about India. And a lot of it is, maybe something on a university or school, playing field, a tech company, the innovation. They are very curious. The world is intensely interested in actually this transformation which is taking place. And this offers us an opportunity. Now, I'm very confident with the passage of time, there's a global understanding which will strengthen our case to become a permanent member of the UN Security Council. Because finally, we will need the strongest support from the world for that to happen. You mentioned COWIN and UPI and said, okay, what other sectors? Look, the sectors are infinite, because I'll tell you what has changed in this country. I do visit universities from time to time, as frequently as I can. And even when I visit universities, I see a change. It's a change maybe in the last 5 years. And I know I have a UGC chairman and a vice chancellor sitting next to me. 5 years ago, if a minister came to a university, people would say, meet our best students, these are our gold medalists, or these are our students who've done well. Today, any university I go to, especially I've seen it in the technical universities, the business universities, they put up people and say, meet these people. These are the people who've done innovations, they have startups, these people have patents. This is a very different era that we have now moved into. So much of the world is today interested in those capabilities. What is it that India would produce? I'm looking today, often, people ask me about businesses. In the old days, I could have said, okay, I know these businesses. Today, they are multiplying so fast that we can't keep track of it. And that's the energy today which, in a sense, has been unleashed. And certainly one which I hope G20 members will come and experience for themselves. Because, again, I'll tell you one thing. When you, as I said, I've done 8 G20s before. It's not like you go in, do the meeting and get out. That might happen at the summit meeting. But if you are there as a minister, or you're there as an official, or you're there as an activist, or a domain expert, anybody coming to India will also spend a day or two before, a day or two after, maybe go to another place. There will be a much bigger exposure than just the immediate meeting. And I'm sure they'll pick up that sense of change in India. In fact, many of them would probably already know it and want to come and see it for themselves. So finally, the question, what happens in a model UN? I think Chief Mr. Shingla pointed out part of the answer is here. This would give it, but as people who attend the real UN, I can tell you, the whole idea, the best way of doing it is like to grasp that sense, the nichod of the whole thing, which is really an India which wants the G20 today to look at the core issues of the world, finance, trade, development, equity, sustainable climate. These are really the big issues which confront the world. Internalize it, and I'm sure your model UN will be wonderful.
Honorable External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar. Now all of you have heard what he had to say. We really hope that you will use this interaction as an opportunity to become the Bhagidars of India's G20 presidency. May I now invite DG RIS Professor Sachin Chaturvedi for a vote of thanks.
Thank you, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Vice Chancellors, respected External Affairs Minister. We had excellent interaction with the Honorable Minister today, as all of you would agree. As Chairman UGC very rightly said, this is a great beginning of India's G20 presidency with students, youth, and university. I think this is something which is absolutely essential and important for us to connect youth and university with this mega international initiative that India has. As External Affairs Minister mentioned, this is not just a routine diplomatic exercise. This is something far beyond that. The idea behind this whole initiative, when we were discussing with Chief Coordinator Ambassador Shringla, 3 points emerged. Number one was to create greater awareness about G20 presidency among the youth. The second was largely to bring forward an international perspective in issues that we are addressing. So far, we had been thinking of climate change to be left best to those who have expertise in climate, to leave diplomacy to diplomats or who are part of that profession, and leave many other specialized areas. But that's what our Minister has tried to blur those distinctions away. The effort is to bring everyone together. Today, the amount of I think response that we have got with 1,200 students online, with 75 universities, and so many of you are here, it just shows how India is changing and how fast we are changing. And that, I think, is something which is extremely important for us. External Affairs Minister recommended reading this article that Prime Minister has written out. He summarized 8 principles, and I think they are extremely important. I would also very strongly recommend you reading this, which Honorable Minister also mentioned. At the end, what my team has done with Dr. Priyadarshi Das, Besachi Saha, and our great friend, they have tried to bring together this idea of key terms, glossary, which is prevalent across G20 presidencies. And last 5 declarations, whatever technical terms have come, we have tried to capture that. We have also tried to capture the whole idea here in terms of identifying what different terms each presidency has introduced. So as you would see, Jakarta Declaration on Financial Inclusion has several different dimensions which Jakarta has introduced. Similarly, the Italian presidency introduced several new dimensions in the finance track. So we have tried to take out the Sherpa track, the finance track all together. What, friends, we are also trying to do here is in terms of the engagement groups as they have evolved in last 12 years, the 17 presidencies that we have seen. In last 12 years, lot of new engagement groups have been added. What we are trying to do is to connect. There is no university track, but what we are trying to do is to have natural connect with the T20, the Think 20, and also with the Youth 20. And with that spirit, today we invited Y20 also, sir, here. They are also here with us. Mr. Fales Cesaria is here. Anirban Ganguly was also invited. So they are also here with us to contribute in terms of how this can then have the cross connects. As External Affairs Ministry has already planned out, the G20 Secretariat is helping in terms of reaching out to 75 universities. So we would do events in each of your universities. As Honorable Minister mentioned, several different modalities are possible. It would very much depend on the Vice Chancellor, the students, and faculty members, how they design their G20 Connect, but that would be extremely important. At the outset, I would like to thank Ambassador Harsh Shringla for his continued guidance and engagement, Mr. Muktesh Pardeshi for actually thinking and sitting with us on this publication that we have brought out. Manish Chand has contributed in this publication. I would also very much like to thank Dr. Sumit Seth for continuously being with us in this effort. Today is just a beginning. It's a long way to go for us. to 75 universities. So it's a great achievement for all of us to have this beginning today. Ambassador Abhay Thakur also was extremely thankful, as was Sherpa and other colleagues in the Ministry of External Affairs. But I must thank Honorable Vice Chancellors for sparing their extremely valuable time. Madam Professor Pandit, to you, Honorable Vice Chancellor of the Jawaharlal Nehru University, Vice Chancellor of Delhi University has just moved, but Professor Singh and Professor Chandrasekhar, I would very much like to acknowledge Delhi University's kind presence here. Professor P.B. Sharma from Amity University is here. Professor Pratik is there from Terry University, whom I would very much like to acknowledge. Would also like to thank Professor R.K. Sinha from Gautam Buddha University. So thanks a lot for your kind presence here. I would also very much like to thank all our partner institutions, Education Department, the OSD, Mr. Chaitanya is here. Thanks for your support, and also to the Joint Secretary in the UGC. She has been, Dr. Thakur, she had been of great support to us. This movement would not have been possible had UGC not intervened and supported us. So friends, this is a great movement, a great beginning. I thank all of you and would now request you for lunch. Thank you.